Could you really sit quietly and silently sometimes for the whole day, day after day, and still learn? Because this is what we're asking children to do a lot of the time. So whether you're a teacher or a parent, a caregiver, regardless of what you're teaching, but particularly in a classic, like traditional classroom setting, what we often ask children to do is sit crisscross applesauce on the carpet or sit at their desk quietly listening and learning. And that is just not how they learn. We know this now. We've spent many years understanding how children learn and how they develop and how their brain actually works. And asking them now, still, we're in 2026, and asking them to just sit quietly and listen, it's just, they're not going to learn. This is not how their brains work. And honestly, as an adult, especially if you're a teacher, ask yourself, could you do what you ask the children to do and still learn? Sitting quietly on the carpet, just listening to you, sometimes talking about subjects and concepts that they don't understand, sometimes concepts and subjects that they're just really not interested in. And then we expect them to stay still. When they're just like need a little bit of movement, we're asking them to be still. When they need to talk, we're asking them to be quiet or silent. And then we say that they're just really disruptive. And I think that we need to look at this differently. Okay, we know how children learn, we know how their brain works. There's play-based learning is really at the heart of a lot of early years, but that doesn't really go into the primary school setting, which personally I think it should. Obviously, a lot of schools are play-based, nature-based, forest schools. They take a different kind of approach to learning. It's a lot about exploration and experimentation and collaboration. But there's still a lot of times where we're asking children to just sit and be quiet and listen and absorb. And that is not how most children or most adults learn. So when we see children moving around and talking to each other and, being what we might just call disruptive, a lot of that time, the body is really just asking for some movement. The nervous system is trying to settle itself, and the brain just needs a different kind of engagement or stimulation. And that's why things like movement breaks and brain breaks are really important in a regular classroom setting. So setting yourself a timer as a teacher, maybe every 20 minutes. I mean, I feel like they need it a lot more than that, but let's just start with like a 20-minute timer. Every time that timer goes off, you take it can just be 10 seconds of movement. So it could be anything as simple as I do a lot, my tapping, my raindrop fingers. It could be a breathing technique. It could be I understand that getting them to stand up in a classroom setting, it's like a whole transition. You can't just do a 10-second stand up and stretch, because a lot of the time it's very disruptive for them. And it takes a lot longer than 10 seconds to get them up, do the stretch and get them down. But you can do movement while they're sat on the carpet or when they're sat at the desk. And that could just be a stretch, it could be a simple twist, it could be just, covering their eyes and moving their eyes around in circles. But they need some sort of break from just constantly taking on this overload of new concepts and information that's being thrown at them, and their brain is trying to process it, and it's being done in a way that is just not very interesting or engaging for them, and it's not how their brain works. The other side of this, aside from the difference in how children's brains actually learn and absorb information, is the regulation side. Now, if you're a classroom teacher, for sure you've heard about regulation. But I just want to enforce the importance of it. And this is not just in a classroom, this is definitely in a kids yoga class, anything that you're teaching them, whether it be swimming or football or anything. They need to be regulated in order to focus and learn. So that means that their nervous system needs to be in a state that allows the brain to be fully functioning so that they can learn, that they can pay attention, because the part of the brain that is responsible for learning and information intake, for decision making, for attention, it's not available, it's not fully functioning if they're in this state of stress or overwhelm. And if you're asking a child to sit and be quiet and be still, that is stressful for them. It's stressful for us as adults as well. So when their nervous system is in a state of stress, their brain is just not able to learn, not able to focus, and not able to pay attention. And a very simple way to be able to work with the brain and the nervous system to make sure it is settled and it is ready to learn is breathing techniques. They're quick, they're fast, they're super easy. There's a lot of breathing techniques, but just keep it simple, I say. So it can just be guiding them to inhale and reach their arms up, and then exhale slowly with their arms coming down. It could be a humming bee breath where they inhale through their nose and they exhale making a humming sound. This one is really great, especially for 7 years and under. It could be just a simple inhale for 3, exhale for 3, or inhale for 3, exhale for 5 for the older children or for teenagers, but they need some sort of regulation. And I understand that certainly as a classroom teacher, you are going from one thing to another, to another, to another. There's a lot of pressure on you to hit certain goals, that you have to work through the curriculum. I do understand that, but children are not actually learning if they spend the whole time in a state of stress, dysregulation, and the whole day they're focused on trying to be still and quiet. They're sat there just thinking, oh, I need to be still, I need to be quiet, when actually what they need is movement and breathing in order to be settled and in order for their brain to fully function so that they can learn and pay attention. So obviously I'm not trying to change the whole, I would love to change the whole education system and how we work. But I'm a kids yoga teacher, and I'm just here to try and help you to sprinkle some regulation techniques, some movement breaks, some brain breaks, not just for the children, but also for you, but into your day. So as I say, whether you're a teacher or you're a parent or caregiver at home trying to encourage the children to do homework when they've already spent 7 or 8 hours a day sitting quietly and silently and just trying to process this information, bring a little bit of movement. It can just be 20 seconds. And a breathing technique to get their brain focused and to get their nervous system settled, to get their body settled. They have to be in a clear state of mind, otherwise they're not going to learn and they're not able to pay attention. And so really ask yourself, when you're asking children to do something, when you're asking them to do their maths homework, or you're in a kids yoga class and you're asking them to pay attention or to relax their body, or you're in your classroom and you're introducing a new literacy concept to them, ask them, could you do what you're asking them to do? Ask yourself that. Could I do this where they're sitting on the carpet, I'm asking them to be quiet, they're here for 30 minutes, I'm telling them not to move, not to be disruptive, and I am teaching a very complex new concept to these children. Could I actually do that? Most of the time, the answer is no. What would you need in order to be able to maintain attention and to learn in that environment? And the answer is probably you would need to speak a little bit, maybe speaking to their friend, speaking out loud to the teacher. You would definitely need some form of movement, some form of stretching, tension release, stress release, and you would absolutely benefit from some breathing techniques. So that's just a few tips that I really hope that you're able to take on board, whether you're a teacher, parent, caregiver. If you are looking for practical tips, I do have a lot of videos on here with practical ways in which we can make breathing quick, effective, fun, and interesting. And as I say, this is not just for the kids. We all need this as adults. And I know we are all feeling this. I was speaking yesterday to another primary school teacher who's one of my teacher trainees, and she was saying the same thing, that we're seeing the same problems. She is in Canada and she's also traveling all over the world, and she is seeing the same problems everywhere, the same issues that schools are facing, that teachers are facing, that certainly children are facing. So this is global, this cognitive overload, the tiredness, this inability to be able to process anything. And so that's why things like breathing and movement and talking and just learning through play and exploration, being creative wherever you can, bringing that into your classrooms, bringing that into your teaching and your parenting as much as you can. All right, thank you so much for listening to me. And if you have any particular questions or comments, then do post them below. And if you want some more information or tips, then comment below and I can make some new videos or do some new lives that are more practical and as relevant as possible to your life as a teacher or a parent.